Eddie Izzard is a local legend around here. Growing up over there, also went to school just over there. You know, Eddie Izzard, the one who said,
"Hello, we're murderers. Twix, please.
And...
Cake or death? Cake, please.
And...
Do you have a flag?"
I grew up with Eddie Izzard. I always loved that kind of quirky stream of consciousness, apparently improvised comedy. My live experience of Eddie was back in the 1900s, kids. I remember going to the O2 Arena. Again, that was pioneering. No one does solo stand-up in an arena. Of course, there's a reason for that. It doesn't actually work. You need to be in the upstairs of the Nag's Head pub to watch stand-up comedy, or at the Comedy Store on a Friday night with a low ceiling and some boozed up hecklers. That's really where stand-up comes into its own. Nevertheless, Eddie Izzard was a pioneer. Eddie has always tried new stuff. There was the improvised stand-up in foreign languages, there's the acting, the books, the marathons. Eddie Izzard once ran 43 marathons in 57 days in the UK and 27 marathons in 27 days in South Africa. That is drivenness beyond anything most of us can imagine. And once, Eddie said, "Everything I do in life is trying to get my mother back." She died of cancer when Eddie was 6 years old. Everything I do in life is trying to get my mother back. We would do anything to answer death. Some people do everything. We spend our lives to answer death, and we all know it doesn't work. 127 marathons will not bring back our loved ones. And so Eddie said this, "I have a very strong sense that we are only on this planet for a short length of time, and that is only growing. Religious people," says Eddie, "might think it goes on after death. My feeling is that if that is the case, it would be nice if just one person came back and let us know it was all fine, all confirmed. Of all the billions of people who have died, if just one of them could come through the clouds and say, you know, 'It's me, Janine, it's brilliant, there's a really good spa,' that would be great. If only someone came back, that would change everything, wouldn't it? It would change our sense of the future. It would also revolutionize our sense of the present. The question is the question for everyone and forever. Has someone come back? Well, here's the Christian claim. Someone did. And it wasn't Auntie Janine off in an obscure part of the country. It was the most famous person who ever lived. And the claim that he came back birthed the most revolutionary, most transformative, most cross-cultural, most inclusive, and biggest sociological phenomenon the world has ever seen. Someone came back. And that someone has changed the world forever. But you know, it's deeper than that. It's not just that Jesus came back from the dead. The Christian understanding is that Jesus pushed on through. He came out the other side of death, and he offers us a path through death and into his kind of future. In the Gospels, there are these encounters that Jesus has with people after he rises from the dead. Check out this from the end of Luke's Gospel. It's set on the afternoon of Easter Sunday. Imagine the scene. Now, that same day, two of them were going to a village called Emmaus, about 7 miles from Jerusalem. They were talking with each other about everything that had happened. So there's a couple who had followed Jesus. They had thought that he was the Messiah, the promised Savior. And then on Friday, the day of Passover, they'd seen him butchered on a cross. The dream is over. They stayed in Jerusalem for the Passover weekend, and now it was the Sunday after the Passover. You know what they called the third day after the Passover? First fruits. So actually, this is the most appropriate day of all for this thing to happen. What is this thing? Well, as they talked and discussed these things with each other, Jesus himself came up and walked along with them. But they were kept from recognizing him. I love this. Jesus is just so cool. I mean, If you were going to prank the mourners at your funeral, if you were going to appear alive again out of the blue, I know this is a strange hypothetical, but stick with me. You know, how would you reveal yourself in risen glory? Jesus is just so cool. I think if it was me, I would blow it by being far too excited. You know, boo, I'd say, and then the look on your faces. But Jesus is much, much cooler than me. He just sidles up to this grieving couple, and he doesn't end their grief. He enters it. He asks them, what are you discussing together as you walk along? You know, Jesus asks hundreds of questions in the Gospels, and the questions don't end even after the resurrection. Curiosity does not end even beyond the grave. Conversations don't end. Remember, this is life. What we see Jesus doing here is a foretaste. We are seeing the future. And Jesus enters into our questions, and he asks his own. What is on your heart, he asks. What's on your mind? Well, they stood still, their faces downcast. One of them, named Cleopas, asked, are you the only one visiting Jerusalem who does not know the things that have happened here in these days? What things? He asked. He's so cool. What things? He's curious. He wants to enter in. About Jesus of Nazareth, they replied. He was a prophet, powerful in word and deed before God and all the people. The chief priests and our rulers handed him over to be sentenced to death, and they crucified him. But we had hoped that he was the one who was going to redeem Israel. And what's more, it's the third day since all this took place. In addition, some of our women amazed us. They went to the tomb early this morning, but they didn't find his body. They came and told us that they'd seen a vision of angels who said he was alive. Then some of our companions went to the tomb and found it just as the women had said. But they did not see Jesus. Remember, Jesus is listening to all this. But think of that phrase they just used. We had hoped. Are there three more devastating words than we had hoped? There's a verse from the Old Testament that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick. You know, hope put off makes the heart sick. We protect ourselves from disappointment by keeping our hopes modest. You know, we hope it'll be a nice day. We hope our team will win at the weekend. We don't put all our eggs in one basket because we know how catastrophic it is when these hopes are dashed. But these guys had really hoped. What had they hoped in? Well, they'd hoped in Jesus. They'd hoped that Jesus was the Messiah. The Messiah is the Savior promised in the Old Testament. He embodied the hopes of the people. He would defeat our enemies. He would heal all our sicknesses. He would remove all our shame. He would gain victory over all our oppressors, even over death itself. This couple on the road to Emmaus thought that Jesus fit the bill. You know, he looked the goods. He spoke like no one had ever spoken. He cleansed the lepers. He healed the sick. He raised the dead. He calmed the storms. They had hoped in Jesus. And then just that Friday, they had seen hope die on the cross. Literally, that was the day that hope died. Imagine being in their position. It would be like you're drowning and you're out there and you call for a rescuer. And someone comes to the water and says, I'm your rescuer. They jump in and then sink like a stone. And you think, oh. At that stage, you're not just sad for the rescuer, are you? Admit it, you're sad for you, because the Savior had died and you're next. And this is their position. The Savior had come and the Savior had died and they are next. You know, if I was Jesus at this stage, I would just want to, throw off the cloak and say, it's me! Turn that frown upside down. But here's what Jesus does. He said to them, how foolish you are and how slow to believe all that the prophets have spoken. Did not the Messiah have to suffer these things and then enter his glory? And beginning with Moses and all the prophets, he explained to them what was said in all the scriptures concerning himself. Here is Jesus' way of meeting Jesus. Even on Easter Sunday, even when he was right there in the flesh, he preferred to unveil himself through the Bible story. Because the Bible has always been saying this stuff. It's always been saying that the way of hope has always been down and then up. Darkness and then light. The seed buried and then new life. You want to know true hope? You need to know Christ and the Christ-shaped hope that He pioneers. You want to know Christ? Get into the Scriptures. All the Scriptures concern Christ and this death and resurrection pattern. But it takes more than a mere Bible study. Look how this encounter progresses. As they approached the village to which they were going, Jesus continued on as if He were going farther. But they urged Him strongly, "Stay with us, for it's nearly evening, the day is almost over." So He went in to stay with them. When He was at the table with them, He took bread, gave thanks, broke it, and began to give it to them. Then the eyes of both of them were opened and they recognized Him. Then He disappeared from their sight. They asked each other, "Were not our hearts burning within us while He talked with us on the road and opened the Scriptures to us?" What's the moment of revelation here? Well, the context is a heart-warming encounter with the Scriptures, but the center is an eye-opening experience at the dinner table. What have you hoped in? Every hope dies. No matter what you do, no matter how you perform, how much you achieve, how far you can run, it all leads to the grave. You can be famous, you can be funny, you can be fit. Every earthly hope dies. But Jesus enters into that death and disappointment, and He reorients us to the true story of the world, the scriptural story in which hope dies and rises again. Do you want an encounter with the risen Christ? You can meet Him like the Emmaus couple met Him. Even if He was here in the flesh, He would meet you in the Scriptures and in the broken bread. Find a church that breaks bread together and opens the Bible, and join in. Soon enough, you'll find there's another companion on your travels.